Hi everyone and welcome to Paratalk, and on this episode of Paratalk I am once again joined by Rob of Dead Air, who is back for a little bit of a catch up, because since we last talked he's been on many interesting investigation. So I thought, well, it's about time we got him back on anyway for a refresher. So without further ado, let me bring him in and we'll get this episode on the road. Hi Rob.
Hello, Reeves. It's becoming even more of a occurrence to be on the show.
Well, yeah, I did promise you that you would be back at some point, and I think, how long has it been? It must have been, it's got to be a little bit of a while, hasn't it?
Yeah. Been busy. Been all over the place in the past sort of year, 6 months or so.
Yeah. So, basically, I'm looking at your YouTube channel with your new investigation. And I would highly recommend anyone who likes a good, serious investigation to check out some of his videos, because he has got an awful lot of them and they are very well made. So, of course, all the links are in the description. So, after you've listened to this episode, don't go anywhere yet. So, when we last spoke, I think it was in May of last year. Since then, give us a bit of background of what you've been up to.
So the back end of last year, I went out to Romania because I love to do a bit of travel. So it's not all about the paranormal. I love going traveling, exploring new places, but I try and find a little bit of something paranormal out there to create some content. And obviously, Romania is one of those places that's absolutely steeped in folklore. So I wanted to create something while I was out there that was separating the folklore and the sort of legends to reality. And one of the most famous ones, as you know, is probably Dracula yourself. There's the fictional character of Count Dracula, as you know, lives in Transylvania, but that's based on a real life Dracula, Vlad Dracula. And I wanted to go out there. It was just to try and see some of the locations. I didn't know what I was going to get when I went out there, because I've never been before and it's a totally new country to me. And I wasn't even sure what kind of access or how easy some of these places were going to be. But the idea I had in my mind was just to go out there and essentially walk in the footsteps of the actual Vlad Dracula, not the Bram Stoker Dracula, but the real Dracula. And it was just 2 weeks out there of just finding places and then going to it. And it was incredible. And there was places I only found out about while I was out there, that tour guides said, well, you've got to go over there. They found out what I was doing. And one of them said, well, you've got to go to this church. There's a church way out of town. Go there, because that's the church that Dracula tried to take when he invaded Transylvania. And then the hill opposite the church, that's where he had people impaled. So got to get out there. Vlad the Impaler was torturing people at this church. I went out there, put some amazing content out there. Then I got tipped off about another place deep in the forest, where the exact spot where it's still marked, where Vlad Dracula died during a war with the Ottomans. And you can still see that place. They've marked it with like a little fountain in the ditch where they said his body was found. And I took a drink from the water that was flowing. It was just a bit of fun. And then came back and put it together as a 2-part video. But it was just me finding places that I knew he'd been to and going out there myself and saying, well, this is amazing. One of the most infamous people. And I've been fascinated by stories of the real Dracula for ages, impaling people, torture, just the way he was. He's a fascinating guy. I really, really enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite things I've ever done with the channel. I mean, I did the ghost hunts and the paranormal stuff, but that for me was just, I loved it. Going out there, seeing some of the actual castles that he was associated with. While I was out there, did a few paranormal things in Romania. The last video that was released on the channel a couple of weeks ago, I went to the Hoiabaciu forest in Romania.
Yeah.
Which is supposedly Romania's Bermuda Triangle. It's got this nickname. It's supposedly the most haunted forest in the world, if you believe what some people tell you. And I managed to get very close to it, stayed very close to it, went in there. People are supposed to go missing in this forest.
How did that go for you? How was that experience?
I thought at the time I was a little bit disappointed with it, because you watch a lot of YouTubers who've been there, and especially the American YouTubers, and they will say that it's this, it's that. Oh, that we got chased out of it. It was this. It's so you watch American TV shows that have been to it, and it's so dramatic. So in my mind, I'm thinking this place is going to be incredibly intense. And I got there, and it wasn't like that at all.
Did you make it into the clearing?
Yeah, the dead zone. So I had 2 nights there, and it's completely different to what people tell you it is when before you go. So there's this thing that's in the middle of the forest, and it's not. It's quite close to the edge of the forest. You can get to it. You can get out of the forest within 3 or 4 minutes from walking from this clearing. But in your mind, before you go, you think it's deep into the forest, and but they don't tell you all that. But the thing is, I did see lights in the forest, and that's the one thing that stuck with me from it was, and everyone says you'll see the lights, and I thought, okay. And I know Ghost Adventures went in; they saw the lights. They captured a really big red light on their screen when they went. Josh Gates, his program that he had back in the day, they captured stuff on camera as well. So I was really looking forward to it. And then you go there, and I did see the lights. That for me, they weren't as big as what they were when the TV shows went in. They're kind of like in the distance, like little speckly, just dancing around kind of lights. But I did see them, and I've tried my best to try and like debunk it. I think there is something going on with that forest where it might not be paranormal, but it's an optical illusion that people are seeing things from outside the forest, because it's on a raised up plateau. It's on the top of a hill, so there's no cars outside the forest. They're all sort of down below the forest, if that makes sense. So what I think's happening is something playing with people's minds where you are slightly looking diagonally down, but you don't realize that you are, and you're seeing all these lights shining into the forest. I don't know. I wasn't able to debunk it. Every time you think you know what it is, you see it, or you look on Google Street View and you look for where a car could be at that point, and there's no roads there. And then when you think it's just on the outskirts of the forest, you see it. There'll be times where I was doing a link to camera, and I didn't realize this until I got home. And then you see like lights behind me while I'm holding the camera, and that's deep in the middle of the forest. So that was weird, and I'm not one of those to want to put it down as being paranormal, but it was weird because I've done a few outdoor foresty things in the UK, and I've never had that before. I did a lot of like full spectrum pictures when I was out there, because that was the first time on that trip that I got to use my full spectrum camera, and I was getting sort of orbs in the trees. And I've taken pictures since then where I've come back home to the UK, and I've taken pictures of trees at night thinking, is it something like an orb that you would see on a normal flash camera that's just light refracting refracted back? And I wasn't getting the same lights that I was getting that I did when I went to Romania. So it was an incredible place. I know it's a place that not many people will get the chance to go to because it's quite far away. You've got to really want to go out there to get to it because it's not in a touristy place. So you've really got to get out of your comfort zone and go into the place where they don't speak English. It's very difficult to have a holiday out of it. But if you're really into it, go there. You won't regret it. I had fun doing it. But yeah, that was my last project that I've been working on this year.
Although you say you experienced some phenomena which you're not sure what it was, I mean, it could have even just been homeless people living in the forest walking around with flashlights, or it could have been something more. There's a lot of people have noticed the light phenomenon, so there's obviously something to it. I'm interested to find out how you felt Generally, how you felt when you were in there.
Well, just to add to that, the strange thing that blew my mind is that you see these lights not just at night. So I went into the forest 4 5 p.m. Well, it was still quite light. It was still daylight. And this was in September last year that I went. So it's still sunny and you still see the lights. So you're thinking, well, it's not car lights because it's not lighting up time for cars. And who would be walking around with a flashlight on in the torch while I can still see where I'm going?
Yeah, true.
So
True.
things like that wasn't making sense to me. And yet I was still seeing them and I still got them on video. They were visible on night vision and they were visible without the infrared on as well. So that was weird. But I was careful to label it as paranormal. I didn't want to call it paranormal because I know that a lot of people have gone out there and they've seen them and have labeled it paranormal straight away. And I'm a little bit hesitant to say it's paranormal because I still think in the back of my mind, I still think there is an explanation to it, whether it's a logical explanation or an unusual explanation. But I think there is something odd about that forest. I think you get it in that forest because people go looking for them. That forest, the Hoya Battery Forest, is so famous around the world that people have heard about it, so they want to go there. The only reason a lot of people go there is to see these apparitions that people see in the forest. But the other thing that was really weird about it was just how dead the forest was. Like, it's the only place I've been where you don't hear birds sing. If I was walking around a forest, if I went down my local woods or the forest ground near where I am, I can guarantee within a few minutes I would have disturbed something and there would be birds squawking because I've walked past and they've woken up or whatever. Or you'd hear twigs snapping in the distance and you know it's a badger or something like that. And there was just nothing. This whole forest was just, there was no other animals. There was nothing, like no birds were singing. You could sit there and you were just in total silence other than crickets. You would hear crickets. It's just got a weird vibe about it.
Were you in there on your own?
Yeah. I had an Airbnb.
Yeah.
Just on the outskirts of the forest, just a little chalet that I managed to find. The first night I went in, a group of students came out. So I got talking to them off camera and because I'd never been before and I was asking them questions like, what have you seen? Do you come here often? And they told me quite a lot of stories that I haven't heard about. But they were like, yeah, there's nobody else in there, by the way. Once we've left, you're the only person in that forest. So just be like totally careful. So I was like, okay. And I didn't meet anyone else in the forest at night. In the daytime, people go for runs, people go for, like jogging around the forest and stuff. So you see people then, but at night there was nobody around.
I think that, these lights that people see, there's loads of places around the world where these ghost lights or whatever you want to call them, light phenomenon that happen. So it is something that, it's common with other places and other location. I'm just wondering, it's got this kind of UFO kind of vibe as well, where people have apparently seen, aerial phenomenon there. Did you do any sort of sky watching when you were there as well?
I looked up a couple of times. I didn't go there with the intention to look for the UFO side of it, but there were photographs that went, I won't say viral, I don't know if that's the word that was used in the 1960s, but they were big in the 1960s, and that's what sparked, it was the UFO stuff that sparked a lot of this phenomenon about this forest. And then it was kind of the ghost stuff that came afterwards. So some people were saying that they were seeing the UFOs, and then they were hearing like voices, children's voices. Now, obviously, the forest has got a legend about it, that there was an ancient tribe that lived on the outskirts of the forest, which has archaeological digs has proved did exist. And there's a big legend that a lot of the women and children were marched into the forest, forced to dig their own graves, and they were beheaded in there. No one's ever found out whether that's true or not, but it would explain why people hear the children laughing. People have recorded things where they've heard a child's voice as if it's playing hide and seek with them, things like that. So I always had that in my mind. That was my focus, was that side of the paranormal element of it when I was going in there. But I don't know what you think about this, but sometimes some places have a bit of everything and it's too much.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm surprised that people haven't seen Bigfoot in there, because it's one of those places like Cannock Chase where everybody sees everything: UFOs, ghosts, aliens, portals, everything. So in my mind, I'm like, how much of this is folklore? How much of this is campfire stuff that people have talked around like a campfire and have told stories, and it's just been passed down and it's snowballed. But it's definitely an unusual place. I know it's an absolute trek to get to, but if I could go back another day, I would go back. If I lived in that part of the world, I would be in there all the time, because I genuinely think there's the amount of people who go there, and it's the locals who say things like they'll not go in there at night because they've seen the balls of light chase them. So when you hear that, and then you see the lights, but you think, well, have they seen the lights? And then it's exaggerated into, well, they've been chased by the lights. But
Would you camp in there overnight? On your own?
I wouldn't camp, but that's just because I've heard there's other things in there, not paranormal. People said that there's venomous snakes in there. People say there's, you don't know. I was told before that I might see wild boar, stray dogs. I heard the dogs. I heard barking. That's why in the end of one of my videos I came out. So it's more kind of like the real life animals that you would have to be careful. But I didn't see anything when I was in there. But for me, I was happy to go in there on my own and spend as long as I want wandering around. But I don't think I could have slept in there just for that reason. But yeah, I know some people have done it before. You can see the campfires where people have actually done that and slept in there. But I think getting the tent out there as well, it might have been tricky. But yeah, that was just something I just didn't think I could do.
So on your paranormal scale, what would you say is the likelihood that something is going on there?
I think it's probably quite low, if I'm being entirely. I think a lot of it is hype. I think it's one of those locations where a TV show has done it and people have become obsessed with it. And then a lot of the big YouTube stars who've got like 5 million followers in America have come across and they've done it. And it's got a reputation. And I think the reputation's gone ahead of it. So I think people are going there and there's stories after story after story coming out. I personally didn't feel frightened at all when I was in there. I'm in there and I'm obviously, you're on edge because you're trying to work out where you're going. You're lost, and then you work out you're going back this way and that way. But at no point did I think that there was like somebody else in there, like anything paranormal, that I was under threat from any type of entity that was going to attach itself or follow me or show itself. I genuinely felt quite at ease in there. It was quite peaceful. When you go into the circle in the middle, you can look up and you see a plane go across, and then you think, oh, I wonder if they're looking down and seeing my lights down here, and you kind of feel peaceful. And some people say that that's the worst bit, where you get the anxiety. It hits you, and you've got the entire forest. You're surrounded by the forest, but you're in this kind of one little bit. But I didn't feel it.
Over here, where I'm literally in my neck of the woods, because I'm on the top of the hill. All of the hillside basically is a woodland. It's about, I would say, if you was to walk it, it's not very much. It's maybe 2 or 3 miles across, and it's where the Romans lived back in the olden days, because there was a Roman encampment up there 2,000 years ago, and there was a fort. Obviously, being one of the highest points of the town. It's a kind of a logical place to make a fort. And this fort was made of stone and wood. So when you go up there now, all that's left is a bunch of stones, bleached stones, that they used in the olden days to make the walls and, the part of the fort. But most of the fort has gone because it was wood. I've been up there a few times, and I have to say, even though we haven't got wild dogs running around up there, and we haven't got snakes up there, with, or anything that's deadly, I always get a sense of not being alone, even when I clearly am alone. Now, people do go up to the woods to do a whole manner of things. As you get lots of big mix of people, but in those areas, like where the Roman encampment is, it's up on the hill, the highest point. So people don't really would go there unless you want to go and visit the encampment. There's like a sign there and stuff. And I always get the feeling that I'm not alone. It's a weird feeling. Maybe it's my anxiety. Maybe it's me. Pretty much it's just me in my brain thinking, somebody's in the bushes or whatever. So I'm sure there's a few homeless people that live up there, or have got tents up there, and just that's where they live. They don't want to be disturbed. They go and hide away up the woods. But I remember when we was kids, and this just jogged a memory in my head. When we was kids, right, we used to party like you. We would find all these, like, go down the beach and have a party. We would go to an old house and have a party. Anywhere to drink a beer or whatever. So we decided that we were going to go up the woods. There was a spate in the 80s, early 90s, where everyone was going up the woods partying. And it actually became a problem. And young people were pretty much kicked out of the woods. But we stayed over one night, and there was this is a long time ago, when I was a scooterist. I was in the scooter club, and we all rode up there on our Lambrettas and Vespers, and we parked in the woods, and we pitched our tents. We were having a bit of Northern Soul on, and we were having a few beers, and it got to about 2 a.m, and we'd all started to sort of go inside our tent. And I remember one of the guys got out to go to have a quick, to the toilet. And he said, "Oh, boys, look at this. And we came out of the tent slowly, and we could see these lights in the woods, moving through the woods. And immediately we thought, oh, it's the police. Somebody's reported us, and the police have come, and they're going to kick us off. They're going to say, pack up and go. And we waited for these lights to come like closer. We thought, oh well. So we started putting our coats on and stuff, thinking, oh, we're going to get booted out. And the lights just disappeared. They just went out. And we're thinking, what the? And they just vanished.
It is other people with torches, and those lights have gone out. Those people are now in complete darkness around them.
Yeah, and we thought
they couldn't get out.
We thought to ourselves, well, that's what we immediately thought. We thought it was like other members of the club, because it wasn't the whole club up there. It was only just a small portion of us, maybe, I don't know, 20 people tops. Because we were more concerned about our scooters getting, tampered with, because they were parked a little way up. And we thought, no, it's obviously people. So we waited. We didn't hear anything. We heard nothing. We didn't hear people walking. We didn't hear people talking or anything. And we waited for maybe 20 minutes. And then we all went back in our tent and went to sleep. And then we got up really early in the morning, like 5 o'clock in the morning, packed our stuff up and left. But it just reminded me of that. I mean, it could have been. But who's going to be? I mean, who's going to be up there at that time of the morning? It was just weird. It was just very weird that you talking about that reminded me of when I was up there with my mates, and we saw those lights in the woods, and we couldn't kind of figure out what they were. Because they weren't like really bright. They were quite dim, but they were moving through the woods slowly. And then they went out, and I thought, okay, who knows what that was? But yeah, I'm just wondering that maybe with some of this light phenomenon, like you said earlier, that maybe it isn't, as you say, paranormal. Maybe it is something else. Maybe, as you say, it's some sort of light refraction or some sort of optical illusion. Who knows?
Yeah. I definitely thought there was something with the geography of the hill, where it's you think you're on a level playing field, but you're looking at down into like a nearby village. And you're seeing a light from a car. I don't know. Maybe there's something, but I think for so many people to travel around the world to see it and to not come back and say, yeah, it was just cars. I think it is weird. Whether I saw the full, because I've seen clips of people who've seen like a big glowing red light and you can see it's illuminating the trees around it, which means it's inside the forest. It's not coming inside the forest, if that makes sense. Whether I didn't see the full extent of the lights, maybe there's more that I didn't see, but I saw something, and I'm glad I saw them because I've technically seen something when I've been there. I'd have been gutted if I come back and absolutely nothing had happened. But yeah, I captured them, got them on infrared and on a normal camera as well.
So when you came back from Europe and you came back to England, you did a number of investigations over the course of the year. Which ones of those for you gave the most evidence and were the most fun to do, exciting to do?
So the place at the minute that I think every paranormal team has to look at going to, even if it's just for a short investigation or to do a full overnight, and that is everyone's getting stuff there. Every paranormal team, and I can tell you a story that happened since I filmed that episode.
Yeah.
It's called the old Scaffold Hill Hospital, and it's on the outskirts of Newcastle. So it's in a big country park. It used to be an old colliery, but it's been converted into a country park with walkways and lakes and stuff like that. But the buildings of the old hospital are still there, and it was an isolation hospital.
Are these, so just to be clear, are these buildings abandoned or in use, or they've been repurposed?
They've been repurposed.
Okay.
So 2 of the main hospital wards are part of the council offices, and they've got a big room where kids can go in and do activities and things like that. And the old mortuary is now a storage block, so that's out of bounds to the public, but they will let you go in if you're doing a ghost hunt. And there's no garage. And so basically, the country park is called the Rising Sun Country Park. Everybody in the north of England, northeast of England, will probably have heard about it, but they've only recently started allowing groups to go in and doing stuff, and everyone was coming out saying, "That is so weird. This happened. That happened," and it's getting such a big reputation where people are coming away with proper evidence. So I went in there, and yet it's nothing to do with the hospital as to what the activity is claimed to be. So they think that this whole site, because it's a big complex, is haunted by a former caretaker who committed suicide in the caretaker's garage, which is like joined onto the front gate, in 1997. Took a shotgun and shot himself in this garage. And staff have come in, they've driven their car up the driveway 6-7 o'clock in the morning, and they've seen a shadowy figure on the lawn, and loads of them have seen it, and they're absolutely adamant it's the guy. He's called Cliff, the guy who lived in the caretaker's house. And so I was thought, well, you've got this hospital where hundreds of kids have died of infectious diseases, and miners from the nearby colliery have been brought in there that have been in mining disasters and all sorts. Yeah, this is what people are seeing. And I didn't believe like that at first. I thought, I'll see what happens when I go. And I was in the garage, and I'm so pleased I got this all on film, because it's one of those where you couldn't make it up. So the tiny little garage, it's got a tractor parked in it, and you can just squeeze around the outside of it. There's not much space. And I said, Cliff, if you're in here, can you slam that garage door? Because it was opened by a little bit of light to come in. About 10 seconds later, the whole thing swung open, and there's no wind outside. No wind at all. I went out, the leaves aren't even blowing in the tree. The door just swung straight open, and I was filming the whole thing. And even now, just talking about it, it's just giving me shivers. And I run out straight away. I deliberately left the whole thing unedited, so that there'd be no cuts, no little transitions. So you can see there was nothing, there was nobody hidden in there. There was nobody pulling a string or anything like that. And it's got me baffled. So I went back with a group about a month later. We'll say a month later, maybe a bit more. And we were in that garage. So many things happened that night that was so weird. And I'm probably the most experienced of that group. So I saw feet walking underneath the garage door, like a shadow silhouette, while we were trying to ask for the door to swing open again, trying to recreate that video. We saw footsteps go past the garage door, and then we barged out trying to see. 2 people saw it, and there was nobody out there. And that's blown my mind. And then later on in the same night, they got an EVP in what they called the mortuary block, which is now the caretaker's storage block. And when it says what is your name, it says Cliffy. But the memorial plaque outside, just literally meters away, it says Cliff, and in brackets, Cliffy. Well, that was the caretaker's name. And that, even though everyone's going in there thinking it's a mortuary, so people died and their bodies were in here, that was Cliff's storage cupboard. And it all links together. And it blows your mind. And then the final twist of it, on that night, and Rob from How Haunted podcast was present the same night. He'll vouch for me that this happened. A very good friend of mine, she didn't want to do an interview. She doesn't want to be named. She was quite embarrassed about it. She ran past me into the toilet block, and I could see her makeup was all running down her face, and she was crying her eyes out. And I followed her. So what's going on? Hang on, whoa, what's up? What's up? I've never seen her cry before. I've known her for years. And she said, "Just a little girl." I said, "Hang on, where?" And she said, "I turned round to the side of me. There was a little girl aged about 10, and she was looking at me. And I shone the torch into her face, and she didn't move. She was still there. The only time she disappeared was when I turned and ran to the other side of the room, turned round, and she was gone." And I genuinely, like, a lot of people will tell you stories like that, and you go, "Oh, right, okay." I genuinely believe her because she's so a genuine person. I've known her for years. I know she wouldn't make that up. And she's done lots of these investigations and never ever has seen anything. And she was upset all night. She couldn't stop crying. And it was like the reaction. Rob Kirker from How Haunted saw everything. Like, he wasn't there when she saw it, but he saw her cry and her eyes out, and he was like, "She's really affected by this."
Let me just interject there. I'm listening to what you're saying, right? And I'm thinking to myself, imagine for a moment, right, that you've been on investigations, and it doesn't matter how many investigations you've been on, it doesn't matter how many bumps in the night or whatever you've experienced, but you're on an investigation, and then you look to the side of you, and there's a child looking up at you that you know should not be there because of the time of the night and where you are, and then you shine the torch onto the child, and it doesn't move. It's almost like a statue just looking at you, but it's looking at you.
Yeah.
I mean, that in itself is that's mind-blowingly earth-shattering. That makes you go away and rethink everything. And it makes you question your own sanity.
I'm trying to get more people to go and investigate this place because they do the odd public event and stuff's coming out of it that's very reliable. Like, things I'm hearing from people I know on the scene around here that are quite trustworthy to talk to.
Did you do any research to find out if there was a little girl who lost their life there or whatever?
One of the descriptions of her was that she had wet hair and she'd scratched one side of her face. And one of the symptoms of, I can't remember what the infectious disease is now, is that you get really itchy. And the kids used to scratch their face because they were so itchy. I can't remember, it slipped my mind which one it was. And no one's seen another girl since. There's no reports of a little girl. All the stories are about the caretaker. But I'm trying to encourage more teams from down south and all over to come up because they're always looking for locations to come and investigate. But they always do the same ones. Like, it's always the same castle or the same 30 East Drive or wherever, where everyone's gone and created. I'm telling people you've got to go to the Rising Sun and the Scaffold Hospital, because the amount of things since last August when they started doing paranormal, it's ridiculous how many stories are coming out of that place. That I think genuinely, if you want to find somewhere that's got a high level of paranormal activity and be able to experience stuff, that is the one that I think is you should look at it. It doesn't cost an arm and a leg to hire out. It's all done through the council, so there's no sort of commercial aspect to it. It's a very good place to go and do.
This comes back to the whole when you see an apparition, is the apparition actually there, or is it something that your mind is mentally interpreting so you could understand the phenomenon? Or maybe what you're witnessing isn't actually a little girl. Maybe it's something else that's portraying or projecting itself as a little girl. So it's stuff like that. Has there been any other, apart from the chap and the girl, has there been any other sort of apparitions reported there?
Not an apparition, but there's been a strange incident that happened, which I've never heard of this before. So there's one of the hospital wards has been turned into like a sensory block. It's like for young children. We've got Asperger's to come, and it's like a dedicated learning centre for them. And the parents come in, the grandparents come in, and they'll pick the kids up or whatever. There's always lots of people picking kids up at like tea time or whatever. And one lady said to one of the workers there, she said, "I'm a medium, and I'm just picked up on someone who's had a heart attack in here or in this property." And she said, "Oh, okay. Well, we've got I haven't heard about this." And she mentioned it to a couple of other people. She said, "Oh, a lady's just been in saying she's picking up on someone who's just had a heart attack and died of a heart attack. No one's died around here anytime soon, have they?" And no, we would have had paperwork to fill in if they had. They would have been all over. If someone had died, we would have, as a council, we would have had to have done something about it. And about a week later, a grandmother dropped down dead with a heart attack in that exact building. And that was last year.
That's crazy.
So it was almost like
a foreshadowing.
Yeah. So she's gone from someone's had a heart attack in here, but it hadn't happened yet.
Yeah, that happens. I mean, people get messages for events that haven't happened, and then it's a time later, those events happen. It's almost like if there is such a thing, and you are a ghost or whatever, you can see you're omnipresent. You can see the future, you can see the past or whatnot. So yeah, it's or even like what a medium's picking up on. If they're picking up on stuff like that information, what are they tapping into, or who are they tapping into? Yeah, it's fascinating. So, you did the hospital. Did you do any other investigations that were kind of on that kind of crazy level where you were getting that kind of evidence?
Basically, I've not done many this year.
I mean, you had one with a ghostly police officer. What was all that about? The exchange in North Shields.
That was a long. So there was the exchange episodes that was done. That was actually a forgotten episode that I recorded, and it was forgotten about because I never technically completed it. So the building closed literally days after I went and did that, and the new owners bought it, sacked all the staff, brought their own staff in, and I then said, "Well, look, I've done this investigation. Could I come along and just get some sort of B-roll shots of the building outside and get some shots inside of the building so I can do some voiceover stuff and whatever?" And they were like, "Oh no, we don't do that now. It's that was the last owners. We're not having anything to do with the paranormal." So I had this sort of half-finished episode, and I kind of forgot about it for a while, and it was like, that's never going to see the light of day. And I just left it, and then since recorded new stuff, and it just got forgotten about to the back of the queue. I said, one day I'll release it. One day I'll find a way of editing it, but it's going to be so hard because I've got very little to put together in terms of material, and started working on it earlier this year, and I thought actually I could do something with this. There is enough there to be able to make. It's not going to be amazing. It's not going to be it's going to be the best thing I've put together, but I'll mention at the start that it's sort of a few bits hashed together. It's not going to be as seamless, but it worked. But yeah, that was a couple of years ago, and I managed to get it out this year. But that was a good one. We got a little bit of cat ball activity, I remember, on that one. On cue as well, which was quite good, because I've never had that before with cat balls. I know a lot of people love the cat balls because they're so cheap and you can put them in your pocket and bring them out anytime you want. And that place was, yeah, there was something odd. I mean, I'd love to go back and do it properly, but they've just closed the doors to paranormal for good. It's a commercial building now, so yeah. But that was an unusual one, yeah.
Before we end this episode, I just wanted to find out from you. You did an episode, and there was like an aggressive physical spirit. Is it a nun's bedroom?
Oh yes, that's another one I forgot. So the back end of last year, I went to Ireland, and I got in touch with a paranormal team in the southern tip of Ireland. I've got to do a big shout out to them, the Cork Supernatural Society. Great team. They're one of those people that have just got so many locations they've got access to. And they're so like sharing. If you get in touch with them and you say, look, I really want to do something paranormal wise over there, they'll say, well, look, we've got this location, that location. They were really helpful. And they said, well, if you come down to Cork, just outside of a place called Cove, there's an old nuns convent. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. And when I went down there, this building is unbelievable. It's huge. It's just been bought by a guy from England. So someone from England owns it. But you've got all the dark corridors are still there, and all the nuns' bedrooms are still there. That was incredible. So you've got the old chapel. They've captured stuff in the chapel. I didn't get much when I was in the chapel. But in the nuns' bedrooms upstairs, there's supposedly a nun that is still around that scratched people. There's photographic evidence that people have been doing building work up there. They've got scratches on their back. And then when I was up there, I was in a bedroom that's still quite left how it was. So you've got the crosses on the wall for the nuns. And then down the corridor, you hear an almighty crash, like something landing somewhere. So I run out, look down the corridor. There's nobody up there. Run, get the camera into each room, as many as I can. Again, when something like this happens, I don't do any cuts so that you can, it's not someone messing about. There's nobody hiding in one of the rooms. I just always make sure that it goes uncut. And I still don't even know what that was. I don't know whether something fell from the ceiling or something fell over. But part of my worry was because it was so far down the corridor, you wouldn't hear it on the microphone. And I would hate that if I've heard it myself but the microphone didn't pick it up. But it did, and it came out really well. And I played it to them, the guys from Cork. They had listened to it, they've watched over it, and they've said they've never had anything like that before. But they've done a couple of investigations there since, and they've got some quite cool EVPs in there. So that's interesting. But again, it's one of those where if that was in the UK, if that was in England, every paranormal team would be doing that building. But because it's in an island, there's not that big demand for it. So there's only one or two groups around doing all these investigations. But it's the Convent of Mercy is the name of the building. Fascinating place. So you go out the back into the back garden, huge garden at the back, and then the guy showed me around and said, I've got to show you this one thing. This will blow your mind. So all right, go on. So he took me to the back of the garden, opened the gates up. There's a little walled section, and all the nuns are buried there. And I was like, that is so creepy. And they've all got the same name on their stone. They're all called Mary. They were all called Sister Mary. And there was about 30 crosses in the ground where all the nuns are buried. And all nuns who've died in the convent had their funeral in the chapel. and being brought out there, and that was a weird place. That was weird. I totally forgot about that one because that was the back end of last year when I went out there. But that was so big, and I very, very rarely do this. I had to make that a 2-part video because if I was to edit that down for 1 hour, there would have been so much I would have had to have cut out of that. Not so much paranormal, but I just wanted to show just how incredible this building was. And I wasn't willing to cut that down to, the brief clips. I wanted to show that place. It was incredible. Again, any paranormal investigators wanting to go over and do something like that, these places are accessible. These places are there. In Ireland, you can get access to some incredible places.
So what have you got planned for the rest of this year?
So I've still got a lot of places I've been to, I've recorded stuff from. So there's a place in Lancashire that I've been to called Borwick Hall. Amazing place, very old historic priest's house that goes back to the 1300s. So that's going to be coming out very soon. I've done a Masonic Hall, a Freemasons Hall in County Durham that's got actual bones that they use for their ceremonies, the actual human bones inside this place, which they think has led to some of the hauntings. And I've been to a hotel in Harrogate that was used as a hospital during the Second World War, and people, including night staff, night porters, have seen a World War II soldier walking through one of the rooms downstairs, one of the big function rooms downstairs that was actually the old hospital wing. A lot of stories from that place, a lot of stories. Just on TripAdvisor alone, people seeing things in there. So I spent a night in there, and I got some incredible access in there as well. So that's all coming up probably the rest of this year.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me again, Rob, for a little bit of an update, giving us a little bit of a peek into what you've been up to. Of course, you will be back again in the near future. I hope everybody enjoyed this episode. It was nice to catch up with Rob and hear what he's been up to. All the links to his YouTube channel, etc., are down in the show notes, but be sure to go to his channel and check out some of his videos because it's all like the real deal. It's no kind of made up stuff. It's all as it happens. So until the next episode, thanks for joining us, and I'll talk to you soon.